Battlefield 2042 has been out for almost 1,000 days, 965 to be exact, if you're counting from the recording of this video all the way back to November 19th, 2021. Since then, the world has survived a pandemic, war has erupted on the European continent, and the United Kingdom has seen 4 prime ministers. What began as perhaps the worst AAA release in history has made up a lot of ground, but with the next game well underway, 2042's service being dropped, and huge new competitors like Delta Force and Call of Duty Black Ops on the way, where does Battlefield stand today? As we await the next title in this aging franchise, how are we, the fans, the game, and the future holding up? There's been a lot of promises made on top of what may be the corpse of a franchise, poisoned by overpaid and underskilled management. Management that has so far been spewing the same exact talking points that they did with 2042, as they bolster their workforce, return to the office, and once again promise the greatest Battlefield ever made. Let's take a moment to gather ourselves and take a look at where we're headed, how we got here, and all my worries as we put 2042 behind us and head towards the next title. So hit subscribe, strap in as we await the next Battlefield, and let's get into it. Perhaps the best thing we can say about Battlefield at this point is that the franchise has more resources, talent, and time than ever before. With a release date set for calendar year 2025, most likely during the holidays, the next Battlefield is being built by several studios including Ripple Effect, Criterion, Motive, and DICE, with at least 1,000 devs between them. And thankfully, it sounds like DICE will be taking a back seat, supporting multiplayer content as Criterion is taking over for the now dead Ridgeline Games, who was in control of the narrative and overall direction. Maybe a little strange, being the Criterion is best known for Need for Speed. However, from what I've been told, they're some of the most tenured devs EA has working on Frostbite. And another point worth mentioning beside this star-studded lineup of studios is that the next Battlefield has most likely been in development since early 2023, in my opinion. The way that CEO Andrew Wilson and leadership said they're going to double down on Battlefield never seemed to really meet up with reality. More so, they stabilized their train wreck and then carried on with the bare minimum. Lackluster seasons, mediocre new game modes, the removal of Hazard Zone, and so on. In my opinion, management was willing to sacrifice 2042 in order to shift the majority of their senior talent onto the next title. So when Wilson says they're committed, he really means that they'll try again in a few years as the franchise sits as a laughingstock for the time being. And honestly, that might be the best option. Battlefield 2042 certainly had the style, the hype, and the fan base to be saved, but ultimately I think EA and DICE had to acknowledge that they didn't have the talent or organizational structure to save such a train wreck. So instead, they decided to use it as a testing bed, as a way to buy time, restructure, and gather resources. And gather resources they did, with legends like Titanfall creator Vince Stampella taking control of the franchise, 20-year Call of Duty vet Byron Bede stepping in as general manager, a tighter relationship with studios like Ripple Effect, aka DICE LA, and the confirmation of a full single-player dev team. EA has been taking the right steps, aside from their dismantling of Ridgeline Games, something we'll touch on later. As crazy as it sounds, on paper, the next Battlefield, which EA's CFO said is slated for fiscal year 25, has all the right ingredients to be an absolutely massive game. According to all accounts, official and insider, the next Battlefield is slated to be a modern shooter with an even deeper experience that will offer a connected single-player and multiplayer experience. Alongside this, insider Tom Henderson states that the next Battlefield will be going back to its roots, with 64-player matches, the 4-class system, and an overhaul to its destruction, while also leading into new trends as it offers a free-to-play battle royale as well as a whole new mode called Gauntlet, an objective-based extraction-style game mode. And as much as I know most Battlefield players groan at the idea of a battle royale, Battlefield needs to do something to stay relevant, retain an audience, and make money. Of course, core multiplayer and narrative must come first, but in the year 2025, with all of these paid options, multi-billion-dollar publishers, and thousands of employees, they need to deliver more. More game modes, more in-game content, more maps, and so on. So even if you never touch the Battle Royale, EA, with all their money, time, and employees, at least owe us the option. So in short, Battlefield 2025 is set to be a modern military shooter that goes back to the basics of Battlefield with smaller matches and simpler core mechanics, while newly hired trendsetters like Zempella and Bede attempt to shift the franchise into a more trendy direction with modes like a Battle Royale and a totally connected experience. Now, while this all sounds great, is it just me, or does this sound frighteningly similar to how they described 2042? Now, with Battlefield 5, 2042, all these modes, hundreds more staff, and their top-tier talent on mind, I'd like to shift onto my second point, which is that EA has absolutely no excuses left. Now, while I do believe Battlefield has all the ingredients to save the franchise with the next title, the next game will absolutely be make or break, and that's not our fault. Andrew Wilson and the team over at EA are doubling and tripling down. Not only are they bringing in all these resources, they're also promising investors crazy return. Speaking about Battlefield as a staple product, up there with Apex, and a way for EA to diversify their portfolio away from Madden and FIFA. EA executives aren't just promising a video game to fans, they're promising a top-tier, profitable service to investors. Just listen to how Andrew Wilson spoke about the franchise during EA's Q3 investors call, stating that, "We're making investments into the future of the Battlefield franchise. Our exceptional teams from multiple world-class studios working with cutting-edge Frostbite technology are building an expansive, community-focused Battlefield universe for our fans. So I want everyone to keep this in mind when the next game comes out. EA themselves have told investors that they have world-class talent, cutting-edge technology, and are investing in an expansive universe of content. There are zero excuses. This is probably something I'll make a separate video on later, but in general, not just do we have every right to be critical of the next game, it's our responsibility to call out EA and point back to these moments where leadership promised not just the fans, but investors huge amounts of content built upon cutting-edge technology. EA themselves is saying that amateur hour is over and that the next title will be world-class, so let's be sure to hold them to their promise. Now, the hardest part of all of this is that the current state of Battlefield is, well, terrible. And I don't just mean the game. We've lost so many great content creators, some of which I've spoken to on multiple occasions. People like Lossy, SMK Gaming, and even Westy have given up on Battlefield content altogether. The biggest sin of Battlefield 2042 wasn't just being a bad game, it was actively killing its fanbase and creators, instead punishing true fans and hiring random mouthpieces to promote the game every few months and then never touch it again. Between the game's empty content cycle, lack of engagement on social media, and active attacks from the devs, Battlefield 2042 was created to punish its creators. And as the game went on, this issue only got worse, watching DICE trickle out less and less content, shut down modes like Hazard Zone, and ultimately end service after only 7 seasons. The game started shallow with no campaign and minimal content, and then DICE doubled down on that, removing modes like Hazard Zone, extending seasons, and changing the meta once or twice a year. The game had gone from a somewhat exciting dumpster fire to the ultimate crime of being forgettable, where it still stands today. A game that had its service officially ended, yet still manages to add a paid bundle every single week, without fail. Now, the game still somehow manages to sit around 25,000 concurrent players per day, a full 25% of its peak from last year, but the content generation, hype, and fandom have all dried up. But shout out to creators like Enders and Ghost Gaming, who are keeping on with their content creation. And funny enough, their support for the game has actually seen them attacked by DICE. Enders getting banned and constantly blacklisted, and Ghost getting kicked from the Insiders program where he'd been an active member for years. DICE and EA fumbled 2042 and then seemed to take out their rage on the fanbase, attacking some of their biggest organic rising stars like Enders and pushing away all their legacy YouTubers like Jack, Westy, Lossy, and Blackfire. Battlefield 2042 has always been and always will be a mess. The game's monetization, content cycle, balance, and lacking depth has left us with nothing more than a middling, content-dry, mediocre shooter. But DICE's handling of their fanbase, lack of transparency, and reluctance to innovate did more damage than the catastrophic release. 2042's biggest sin is that it failed while never even trying to be great, barely crossing the finish line with the most typical, boring concepts, limited content selection, and lacking gameplay pillars. They never even tried to save Hazard Zone, they never even attempted a campaign, and they continue to set the bar lower and lower each season. At this point, the state of 2042 is a consistent, reasonably fun, casual shooter if you don't think too hard about it. But considering all the time, resources, and hype EA and DICE gave this project, it feels like a waste of potential, money, and time, now best used to be a stopgap as EA buys time for their next title. And as for the next game, I'm cautiously optimistic. There is more than enough reason on paper to give me hope, but even if you want to cut 2042 some slack and blame COVID or Halo like EA did, we can all agree that there are no excuses moving forward. For the investors' sake, for the fans' sake, and for the FPS market's sake, we need the next Battlefield to absolutely be great. But guys, tell me how you're feeling about the state of Battlefield below, and for everything else, stay tuned and subscribe, and as always, thank you guys for watching.